Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool show on Football Tour podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. There was some breaking news earlier today in regards to the Premier League as Manchester United coach slash manager, whatever he wants to call himself, got sacked, which is of course Ruben Amorim. What does that mean for the rest of the league? Does that mean Arne Slot is next in line? That's something we can discuss during the show. And speaking of Arne Slot, there has been some sort of rumors surrounding a clash between Richard Hughes. So there seems to be a civil war within the club. So we'll look into that as well. But to start the show, we will discuss a transfer rumor that has been circulating today, and that is in regards to Federico Chiesa. Fabrizio Romano tweeted earlier on to say that Juventus have made a formal contact to show interest in signing Federico Chiesa over a possible return in January. Decision is up to Liverpool and the player, still very early stages. So, my viewpoint on that, I don't blame him if he wants to leave the club. He's clearly been disrespected by the coach. He's not been given an opportunity or a fair opportunity to stake a claim in the lineup. So therefore, I wouldn't hold him or hold any grudges on him if he wanted to leave. This is a very important time for the player where in the next few months we have the World Cup. So he's going to do everything in his power to get some game time. And if he can't get that game time in order to be selected for the World Cup squad, he may have to move on. So no surprise in terms of the links coming from Italy. Of course, it's his former club. It's the club that we signed Chiesa from in the first place. So that's a slight surprise, as I wouldn't assume that they would want to re-sign him. Of course, management has changed since his departure. So, is there any truth to the rumor? Now, if it was down to Onslaught, there probably would be. I think he would be ready to sell or move Chiesa on. But I think in terms of the hierarchy, they wouldn't be so keen to sell an attacker in this window due to the injuries that we've got. We've got Isak out for at least a couple months. Ekitike, very unsure in terms of his current status. Could be available sooner than planned. But we're not entirely sure of the extent of his injury or how long he will be off for. But at this stage, he is unavailable. You got Mohamed Salah competing at AFCON, so he's not available for the foreseeable future. So you've only got the likes of Gakpo, who's just returned from injury. You've got Ryan Gamoa, who's not getting any game time whatsoever, and you've got Chiesa. And then now we've actually played players out of position in order to occupy those wing roles, i.e., your Verts, your Szoboszlais, and Frimpong's as well. So I don't think they'll be willing to sell Chiesa in this window. But if the influence or the decision came from Arne Slot, we could see him part ways. So let's see what happens in this rumor. I'm not sure if he will leave. Personally, I don't want him to leave because I do rate the player. But at the same time, I do understand if he wants to move on and return to Italy, where it's familiar territory, and he's able to get game time because he will be respected there. Of course, fellow Italian, and hopefully he'll be able to get selected to play in that World Cup. He's at that age right now where you know there's no guarantee that he'll be selected in the World Cup for years to come. So this is a very important year for him. I think he missed the last one, if I recall, due to injury. So he'll definitely want to make sure that he participates in this upcoming World Cup. So let's see what happens with this one. I don't think he will go, but if he does, he gets my blessings because I think he's been mistreated at the club and deserves to be treated better, if I'm being brutally honest. Now, in terms of the breaking, it wasn't breaking news. I wouldn't quite go far as to say that, but there was an article that has been uh, s- has been on social media in the last couple of hours regarding a civil war between Arne Slot and Richard Hughes. And just to sort of summarize the article, Arne Slot has reportedly clashed with Liverpool sporting director Richard Hughes over transfer decisions and the use of academy players, with Slot resisting to give youth prospects first team opportunities, and he said pushing for external signings. Hughes and his recruitment were keen for Rio and Gamoa and Trenioni to be given bigger roles at first team level following impressive performances in pre-season. Slot was not in the same mindset. Apparently, he wanted Liverpool to launch and Gamora after Luis Diaz was sold and pushed the rest to pursue a move for Bradley Barcola or Malik Fofana. Now, what I'm going to say is definitely going to annoy a few people, especially one in particular in the chat. Shout out to Vol. I actually am on the side of Slot here because as great or as special of a talent and Gamora is, I feel like we should have replaced Luis Diaz with an established player like a Bradley Barcola or a Malik Fofana. Malik Fofana doesn't really fall into my category as an established player. I still feel like he's a player of huge potential, just slightly ahead of Ngomara in terms of development. But I believe Bradley Barcola would have been able to come in and change the outlook of our attack. And that doesn't mean that Ngomara wouldn't have gotten any game time. I would have still utilized Ngomara in this team because there is a team where you can have a Rio and Gamoa and a Bradley Barcola in the same lineup because Barcola can play on the right wing very, very comfortably. So I feel like when you've sold a major player from last season like a Luis Diaz, you need to replace him with the same level of quality, and we didn't do that. But in terms of the youth development and giving these young players opportunities, that's something I definitely agree with in regards to Richard Hughes. Of course, my opinion is that we should have got a player like Bradley Barcola, but that never happened. So if something hasn't happened, you have to utilize what you have in your disposal. So currently we have the likes of Trey Neoni and we have the likes of Rio and Gamora training with the first team squad week in, week out. So therefore they should be given plenty of chances or they should be given a fair opportunity to make a name for themselves. They haven't been given that opportunity. When they have made an appearance, it's always down to the last 5, 10 minutes of a game where, let's be honest, you're not going to make a huge impact. You very rarely get someone that comes off the bench and scores the winner. Rio did that against Newcastle, of course, but that shouldn't be something that we label him as a super sub or anything of that nature. He's 17 years of age. He needs to be given more game time, in my opinion. Frenioni, I feel like he's developed really well and he should have been given more opportunities in midfield, especially where we've lacked energy, we've lacked a bit of power, a bit of dynamicism in our midfield. You look at the likes of McAllister, he can't chase anyone to save his life. And that's just me keeping it 100 there. So when you've got a player like Trey Nyoni who's energetic, who's going to be up for it, and look, despite his young age, he's definitely able to handle himself. He can get involved in physical battles. So I'm quite surprised that we haven't utilized Trey Nyoni that much this season. And the same goes for Rio. But I feel like with Slot, he has his preferences in terms of playing certain players like your gap pose and not really dropping them when it needs to be done. Of course, he did it with Mohamed Salah, and I don't feel like that was the right example to present because Salah, although wasn't playing his best football, wasn't our worst attacker. Gakpo for me has been one of our worst attackers this season. Been very inconsistent, and the way he's played, he's so predictable. He's so one-dimensional, and I don't really feel like he's elevated himself this season. So in terms of this article, if I'm being quite honest with you guys, I don't think there's any truth to it. This feels like a fan piece. This is something that I would write because I've been voicing my concerns about the lack of youth players being played, and then the other argument there of not us replacing Luis Diaz with a sort of established replacement is the obvious alternative there. So I don't believe there's any truth to this. And the reason I say that if there was a clash between the sporting director and the manager, why wasn't there an action made to get rid of this coach? So if this is right now that a clash has happened right now, then maybe his days are numbered, and only time will tell. If he was to get sacked after the Arsenal game, for example, then I would believe that there is truth to this article. I feel like the club had the opportunity to dismissed Arne Slot a long, long time ago. I'm talking back in November when we were losing 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, 4-1 to PSV. That was the time to sack the manager because it wasn't just two defeats. We lost 9 games in 12 at that time. So we had the opportunity to dismiss this coach, but it looks like, in my opinion, Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards aren't willing to dismiss the coach because it would more or less hurt their pride, or people would question their ability in their roles because they were the ones that brought Arne Slot into the club. So if he's won the league in the first season and then has completely flipped the script and is going down through a terrible run of form and looks like a shadow of himself as a coach, then it looks like that was a terrible appointment on their parts. So I don't think they will dismiss him right now. And that's not me saying I don't want him dismissed. I've been wanting him dismissed for a very long time. But I have to face the reality. And I don't think he will be moved on until end of the season. Unless something really dramatic happens where we lose more games this month and the distance to the top or to the top four more so than not increases in terms of the gap. If he was to get dismissed, it would be this month, in my opinion. Like, let's say we lose to Arsenal, and that's not me wanting that. Let's just paint the scenario. Let's say we do lose to Arsenal, and then they look at the gap. They're thinking, "Oh, we're clearly out of the title race, 15 points gap, whatever the number is. We're still adrift in terms of the top four position. We're not secure in that role. So maybe this is the time to move the coach on." But I think this should have happened a long time ago if it was going to happen. So therefore, I think they're content with having Slot until the end of the season, so they can find the right candidate, someone like a Xabi Alonso or a Luis Enrique or a Julian Nagelsmann, someone of that ilk and that pedigree, because that's the kind of coach I would want at my club. So let's see what happens. But in regards to this article, I don't think there's any truth to it. That's just my personal opinion. I think this is more of a fan's perspective that I think a lot of us will share the same opinion, but doesn't mean it's a reality, unfortunately. So let's move on to the next rumor, and then I will go through the comments. So this was the breaking news earlier on today. So of course, Ruben Amorim was sacked by Manchester United earlier this morning. Were we surprised? I certainly wasn't. I was speaking to my friends yesterday, last night, who are United fans, and I was like, "Look, the way he spoke in the press conference, he's asking to get sacked." And look what behold, within 12 hours, he was sacked early in the morning as Manchester United coach. And when he was talking about him being a coach and not a manager, I've said this quite a few times about Slot as well. That is two different types of roles. He wants to be a manager. He wants to be in control of everything at the club. But his responsibility has been just to be a coach, i.e., just manage the first team players and make them play or train them. That is his role. He's probably wanting to have more authority, more power in terms of who he brings in, because I don't think he makes the decisions to sign certain players. So therefore, it hasn't worked out for him. And quite frankly, I don't really care about Manchester United at this stage. But the reason I'm raising is because what does that mean for the Premier League? Is Arne Slot the next man that gets dismissed in his role? You can't say yes with conviction because FSG aren't really showing much indication that they will. But I would like them to take a leaf out of Chelsea's and Manchester United's books because they've been cutthroat. Enzo Maresca was sacked a couple of weeks ago. Ruben Amorim was sacked earlier on today. They thought these guys were not the right coaches. Despite what's happened behind the scenes, they decided to make a decision, and maybe it'll pay off, maybe it won't. That remains to be seen. But in terms of Liverpool, I feel like we need to change directions, but I just have a feeling that we won't, and I think he will be here until the end of the season. So let me know in the chat what you guys think. What should happen with Arne Slot? Should we continue to stick with him until the end of the season, or should we part ways just like Manchester United did with Ruben Amorim earlier today? So let's go through the comments and we'll take it from there. So Bo says, big up Aussie, big up Bo, hope you're well. He says, big news coming from Anfield Watch saying there is a civil war at Liverpool. Hughes and starting in a heated fight over Rio and other youngsters game time. What will I say, Aussie? Youth will be the end of Slot. Yeah, but I don't know if there's any truth to that article. It feels like a more of a fan opinionated piece. But only time will tell, I guess. Look at United as well, sacking a manager but has no replacement yet. Why do we have to wait until that happens? You think, Ozzy? Well, I don't want to follow their way of recruitment. I know I just said that, let's take a leaf out of their book. When I say that, I'm thinking more so of us having the guts to dismiss the coach because they have been very poor in terms of their performances. But at the same time, we are a well-run club, and I don't want that to change. So if we do bring someone in, it has to be someone of adequate quality. For all we know, may not have someone lined up. From what I've heard, is Darren Fletcher. He's going to take over for the next couple of games, and then they'll assess the situation from there on. So he might be the interim solution. Our interim solution, I've said, should be Steven Gerrard because he's the only one available out there that I feel like can give the club and the fans a boost or that good feel factor once again. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Um, Using United as an example, I don't think that's the right way to go. They've sacked their manager because he was wanting to get sacked. He made reckless comments yesterday, and clubs aren't going to stand for stuff like that. Arne Slot is not going to say those sort of things. He will always, articulate himself in a way where you can't point the finger at him. That's something Arne Slot does really well. To give him a bit of credit, which of course is a negative, but he's not going to outright insult the integrity of the club or the owners or the sporting director in this scenario. So no, I don't want us to move like United. That's the worst example to use as a club. Clock is ticking. There needs to be a big and long stream with so many breaking news. And everyone watching, feel free to leave a comment. I don't think it's that huge, in terms of us doing a long stream. I'm not planning to be a longer than 30, 40 minutes, if I'm being quite honest with you. Um, I don't think it's that kind of breaking news that I need to have a long show about because it's an opinion piece, quite frankly. I know Anfield Watch, of course, are a bit more established than your normal journalist, but it's an opinion piece. That's how I'm gonna phrase it. I don't think there's any truth to it, if I'm being honest with you. That's about Aussie. When your Arsenal preview. So the Arsenal preview will be on Wednesday as we play them on Thursday. So yeah, Wednesday will be the match preview. But also, do you see Ekitike's Insta post? Something big is happening. I did not see his post. Feel free to let me know in the comment what the post is regarding. Double D, big up Double D says Fede, don't leave. I don't want him to leave. I agree with Double D. I know you're a big fan of his, and I am as well. But if he wanted to leave, I really don't blame him. The way he's getting disrespected and not really having a tantrum about it, not really voicing his frustration or any concerns that he has in terms of his position at the club. And whenever called upon, he always gives his best. He always puts in a shift for the team. But unfortunately, this coach just seems to just not rate him at all. Whether there's a personal issue, I really don't know because it's just me making assumptions here. But something isn't right between the two, and that's not how you treat a player of Chiesa's quality. And in this situation where two of your strikers are out, your talisman in Mohamed Salah is in international duty at AFCON. This is the perfect time to bring in a player like a Chiesa, who has wealth of experience, can play multiple positions, and can really make a difference in this team. But he's failed to utilize him. He's failed to understand that, and instead he's gone for a right back to play right wing. He's made an attacking midfielder play left wing. It's just a bit all over. And our left winger, our primary left winger, according to Slot, he was playing up top yesterday. So everyone's been made into a makeshift player. But why not play a player that can actually play with effect, that knows the attacking roles better than anyone in the current team right now? But this is where I feel like his coaching levels are low in terms of how he manages players because other coaches, especially like Jurgen Klopp, and I always use Jurgen Klopp as example because obviously we've enjoyed his time over the years, but he always used senior players as his lieutenants or people that he can just communicate and then they can do the talking for him on the pitch. This is the time to use a player like Chiesa with experience to help players around him and even help players who I think should be in the team, like your Rio and Gomez and your Trainionis, and give them the the talk in the pitch, or give, be a mentor for them whilst they're playing, because you're an experienced player. But what you're doing is you're disrespecting two your youth players that have huge potential, but you're also disrespecting a player that has great experience. So you're missing the puzzle here. Like, you're missing on two types of players that could actually impact your team right now, and you're using your personal issues. I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm guessing right now. There seems to be a personal issue, or these players don't meet your philosophy, and I don't like coaches like that personally. Um, and that's been a reason why I've not been very happy with his way of managing this season, and that's why I want him to be moved on as soon as possible. Bolstered rumors that this will be the last week of Slot. Who said that rumor? If there's any source, please let me know. Look, I'll be happy. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not good. I'd be over the moon about that. But if it's going to happen, it has to happen this month, because we can bring someone in, and if we need to make any further reinforcements, you can do that with the new coach. Because maybe the thing is right now, and I'm gonna speak about a few rumors, although I don't think those are rumors for this current winner. It's more for the future. But maybe the hierarchy don't have trust in Slot right now. Maybe they are uncertain with him, and therefore they aren't willing to give him any funds to add to the squad. That's why we're not heavily linked with anyone. Semenyo was the heavy link for us. He's moved on. I don't know if it's official yet, but he's pretty much on the verge of signing for Man City. And with Marc Guehi, I don't think he's going to move on personally. We'll speak about Marc Guehi because there has been a rumor circulating regarding his future. I think he's going to move on in the summer. Whether it's the Liverpool or not, that's another discussion. Uh, but if the rumor is that he'll leave this week, or this is the last week, then I would be happy about that. And that's not a good thing to say morally, but I'm talking from a football point of view. That's what I want. I want us to have a new coach uh, for the rest of the season, and then let's see who we can get to take this club forward. Uh, Apple Jar, big up. He says this three dimension: Hughes, Arne, and Edwards sacked and out. Free rubbish and toxic in LFC. You know what's funny? We will have to have a conversation about Hughes and Edwards as well. When Edwards returned to the club, there was a huge, oh yeah, we're back. He's going to do what he did over those years ago. But we brought him back at the cost of Jurgen Klopp leaving. But of course, Jurgen Klopp made that decision to leave first, and then of course FSG made the decision to reappoint him, or reappoint him in a role that is superior to his previous position. And I don't think he's even fulfilled that, because he hasn't found a feeder club for FSG. But in regards to the free, they will all have to be held accountable, whether it's down to recruitment or whether it's down to the Stocks appointment. They do need to be held accountable for what's happened this season. I personally think the recruitment hasn't been that bad. I just feel like this coach has not utilized those players to their strengths, and therefore we looked a bit mismatched, a bit disjointed as a team, and that's why we've not been successful. It's down to his tactics. They've completely changed from last season. So I don't know if it was if it's his brother or someone that's managing the club right now, because it's completely opposite tactics. And last season we gave him so much credit to be, when he was courageous to make changes at halftime, or early in the second half, for example, that helped change the game or change the outcome of the game. This season he's very, very cautious and very slow to react with his substitutions. And when he does make those substitutions, they don't really have any direct influence in terms of the tactic. It's just to basically make use of the substitutes, just to say, "Oh, I gave you 5 minutes." That's why he uses the statement of Rian Gamal saying, "Oh, I give him minutes, and he's the in the league. He's the only 17-year-old that has the most minutes in the league, or something along those lines." That's because you're throwing him in for the last 5 minutes. That doesn't mean you are utilizing his skill set. You're just basically giving him a cameo, and that's a tick box activity for you. So that's why I don't like the way he's managing this team this season. But these three will need to be held accountable. Absolutely. Of course, the players need to be held to an extent as well because they're the ones on the pitch and they haven't performed to their level. But it comes from the coach, it comes from the hierarchy in terms of recruitment. So that's a bigger discussion for us to have, I guess, at some point later this season. Mostly, I'm tired of saying it as you know it, but I strongly disagree. But either way, this will be the end of slot. As you know, strongly disagree with what I've said. What do you strongly disagree with that I've said? Let me know. I don't know what you strongly disagree with. Um, I know you want slot sacked, and I agree with you. So I don't know where the disagreement is. Uh, Ben's Bosak, who wrote it, is very reliable though. That's all good, but I just don't see it as if there's any truth to it. You know, if he's like after Arsenal, then Ben Bosak gets credit, doesn't he? So I don't know. Well said, fair play to Amorim. That is the mentality I want at my club. But what did Amorim say that is the mentality that you want at your club? I don't. I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I didn't watch the full conference. I watched snippets of it online, and he was banging on about saying that I'm not a coach. I'm a manager. So I don't know how that aligns with great mentality. Um, he just cost himself a job at one of the biggest clubs. I know they're one of our rivals, but let's speak facts. They are still one of the biggest clubs in world football in terms of what they've achieved and how they move from a business point of view. So if that's what you want from your coach, okay. Um, I don't really want my coach presenting out the dirty laundry of my club. I don't really want that, to be honest with you. But if that's what you want, that's fair. But that's not how I would want my coach to move. To be honest with you, also Ozzy, why does clubs nowadays want coaches over managers? The fact are that managers is much more successful. Klopp, Ferguson, Pep, Mourinho. Well, in regards to the names you listed, Klopp, it wasn't just down to him. When he was at the club, it was the same structure that we currently have. Of course, his job title was Liverpool manager, but he didn't have the full power until Michael Edwards left. So that's one thing I would like to make clear. In terms of Ferguson, Pep, Mourinho, they all had sporting directors that would help with their recruitment, but of course they would always have the final say. The way football was moving on, not from a British point of view, from a more of a continental point of view, is that is the model now. The model is that managers shouldn't have to do the scouting, the negotiating, and the recruitment. They should be solely focused on what's made them a manager, which is coaching players. So therefore, a lot of clubs, and this is the modern way of doing things now, is to have a coach who trains the players, and then you've got another fella in the sporting director that will manage all the background stuff that could be regarded as a distraction in that role, i.e., dealing with agents and negotiating contracts and scouting players and doing, recruitment for the youth and for the current team. So they've tried to take the load off the manager and rephrase it as the first team coach, and then the sporting director pretty much does all of that work. The model's not bad. It's just that you have to get it right in terms of your appointments. The sporting director and the first team coach need to be on the same page. As soon as they're not, it falls to pieces. So that's something the club should have looked at, in my opinion. And let's see what the future holds. Last season I was very vocal about Richard Hughes, and I thought this guy was just chilling on the yacht doing nothing. Of course, he had a busy summer, so I had to give him his credit. But we don't know in terms of his credibility. Is he good enough to be a sporting director at Liverpool? Because just like when we analyze players, we analyze managers, we have to analyze sporting directors as well. They have to be worthy of their roles. Sporting director at a bottom team club in the Premier League is not the same level at a top club like Liverpool. There's levels to this. So is this level too high for him? Just like I feel like this level is too much for Arne Slot. It could be the case, but at this stage, we'll have to see how this season pans out, and let's see what decision is made in the summer. if they're both at the job, I'll be quite surprised. I think Richard Hughes is more likely to stay than Arne Slot, in my opinion. But yeah, at this stage, very, very unclear to say that something is going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see, unfortunately. That's it, Ozzy. Who would you start up top um, of you or Slot on Thursday if we were all fit and no AFCON? Well, I can't really say no AFCON because I mean Salah would be in the team. But in terms of our current selection, I would I what I would do and what Slot would do are two different things. Let's be honest. But you asked me what I would do. I would play Chiesa up top. I would play Rio on the left, and I would have Verts in the number 10 role, and I'll have Soboslai on the right wing. That would be my quartet in our attack. That's what I would play. But I know for a fact this coach won't do it. So yeah, that's my answer to your question there. Mostly love managers who are speaking against balls, to be honest. Speaking the truth, I think that's suicidal if I'm being honest with you. Because this could hamper his progress as a coach going forward because big clubs won't want to sign someone that's a problem. And quite frankly, he doesn't have the credentials to move on to big clubs. He hasn't achieved much in in his career, in my opinion. Someone like Antonio Conte, who we know can be a problem at times when he's not given the funds or if he's not given the backing from the board, but he wins. He's a winner. He's won a lot of trophies, won trophies wherever he's been. So when you take a risk on him, there's a lot of pros and cons, but there's more pros because of what he's achieved as a manager in his career. Amrim, I don't think can sit on that same table. He had a good spell at Sporting Lisbon. He's won league titles there, of course he has, but quite frankly, the Portuguese league is not the most difficult of leagues. So for me, he hasn't really shown his credibility as a top level coach at United. Of course, the United job is always a difficult job, whoever comes in, because they have to deal with a lot of politics and all sorts. But I don't think he was the right profile for them in terms of from a footballing point of view, but also from a personality. He just seems to be all over the gaff. You seem to like managers that speak like that. I don't quite like I liked Jurgen Klopp that he was open, but I feel like there was a strategy behind the madness. So I think what he would always do is he would always take the heat to avoid the players feeling the pressure. With Arne Slot, I feel like he adds more pressure to the players, which doesn't help in this current scenario when you're not playing well. You're just about getting points here and there, but we're scraping points right now, if I'm being honest. So that's your opinion. I don't want my coach to be vocal just for the sake of being vocal. There has to be a method to the madness. I'm gonna go back to history. Remember when Rafa Benitez had that meltdown about Sir Alex Ferguson? I genuinely believe that was the reason why we fell to pieces after that. Because after that, we weren't able to notch any points, and we lost track of our progress in the title race, and then we end up losing. So you got to be careful how you talk publicly. It is an art, it's a skill. I don't think Arne Slot is very good at it. Neither was Amorim. Jurgen Klopp, some liked it, some didn't. I appreciated his honesty at times, but even sometimes, he could go a bit over the top at times. But in general terms, Klopp knew what he was doing. To be fair, Boss said it was a guy sitting and watching a nuclear explosion right after the Anfield Watch post came out. He gonna need something. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I'll have to look into it. But I'm not sure. Sure. I'm not sure what to say to that. To be fair, but also, what makes you believe that we want Slot sacked this season when more and more stuff is coming out? Ozzy, what makes you believe that we want? We won't. Oh, sorry. I thought you said we. Um, the reason I believe that is because he should have been sacked a long time ago. When we were losing nine games in 12 matches, that's when you sack a manager. If we were Wolves or any of those teams in the relegation zone, they would have sacked their manager if that was their form. But he survived. So if you can survive that, you can survive anything. That's the way I'm looking at it. So I don't agree that he should still be the coach, but I think he will stay as the coach until the end of the season. Let's see if that happens. If it does, then of course, we can have this chat later on. But I don't think he will get sacked. I want him to get sacked, but I don't think he will because he survived the worst run since the 1950s, and he's still here. He's still standing. He's taking all those punches to the face. He's still standing. He ain't been knocked out. Nothing's been waved at him. No white flag. Nothing. So if he's still here, he's still here for a reason. They have some level of faith on him, or they can't replace him. And I kind of understand that element as well. But I feel like just bring back Steven Gerrard, bring that good feel factor back to the club because he'll be willing to do that role on an interim basis. I'm pretty sure he will. And if we have to go into a different direction in the summer, I think he'd be happy or he'll be pleased with that. Not pleased, but he'll understand the situation because he's a Liverpool fan, so he'll want the club to be successful. And if they believe we can get someone of better quality to take his role, then I think he will be convinced by that. So yeah, that's why I feel like Slot will stay. That's all I want. If no one's understood that, then I don't know what else to say. But I'm speaking facts here. I don't think he will. I don't think he will. If he would have been sacked, he should have been sacked in November. But he's still here. He's still surviving. So yeah, he's still standing up. Unfortunately. But also, do you think Slot knows the results and the performances he been getting? Of course he does. But he won't tell you that in the press conference. That's why I say to you, when these managers talk, they're not an open book. No manager is ever an open book. They are either media or PR trained, or they're very smart, very articulate, very clever in terms of the way they communicate. We might not like the way Slot talks because I find him a bit annoying, but maybe it's because I'm not one of his biggest fans right now, and I find anything he does annoying. But he has a way of talking, and I've spoken to other people, and they've always said to me that this is the way Dutch coaches are, or Dutch people in general, where they're very open, and that's just the way they talk. And I feel like there's been times where he's spoken too much. He's revealed too much, in my opinion. A few months ago, he said that, "Oh, we don't have a solution for long balls and low blocks." Why on earth would you say that so publicly? You said you like your coaches to be open. Were you happy with that comment? Because I wasn't. That was just as bad as Pep Linders releasing that intensity book, giving everyone a blueprint to beat us. So these kind of things, you keep it to yourself. You don't let the world, or you don't share it to the world to let them know how we move or how we operate. So he knows we're not playing to the right level. But at the same time, I feel like the way he'll talk, he'll sound a bit deluded. And like for example, I haven't watched the press conference to be fair. After yesterday's game, I couldn't be bothered, quite frankly, because I feel like he just talks a lot of nonsense. But correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm saying if I say something that he actually said, then you kind of know how he operates. But if he was to say something along the lines of, "Oh, we were unlucky because they scored a worldie at the end," that's him just basically making an excuse there. In that moment, we defended absolutely poorly. It wasn't just a lucky hit. Of course, the strike was unbelievable, and that player Harrison Reed will probably not hit a ball better than that ever in his career. And that's not me being disrespectful because those goals they don't come often. But he had acres of space, so that's poor defending. Like he's not going to talk about the defending. He's just going to talk about the element that it was a shot that came out of nowhere, and you don't expect to lose in those times. Like he's gonna come up with a book of tales that you feel like, oh, I understand what he says, but it's excuses for me. For me, it's poor man management from him. When we equalize around the 54th, 57th minute, that was the time to go all guns blazing, i.e., bring on attacking players like your Rios, like your Chiesas, and attack, attack, attack. Increase that scoreline. So even if they get that worldie of a goal, it doesn't affect the scoreline or the result. We still get 3 points. What he did was took the foot off the gas, and we were just chilled after that. And we didn't play with no intensity, no drive. And when you're leaning back and you're playing in that kind of manner, you're not going to have the drive or the desire to go at the other team. You've got to have a aggressive mentality. We don't have it with this coach. We're too calm, too relaxed. We're soft as well. I'm not gonna lie. As a team, we're soft. We don't really like to go into physical battles. I don't like that in my team. I really don't. I want some dogs in my team that will literally tackle, hound people. Whether you're a centre back or a defensive midfielder, I don't care what role you're playing. Even if you're a striker, I want you to be a dog. I want you to press on people. I want you to be a bit of a bully. Elbow the defender here and there in a sneaky way. Do what you gotta do. Play dirty tactics. Play dirty. I'm probably shouldn't be saying it out loud, but that is the art of football. You have to play the game and you have to get an advantage on other players. Can't be all nicey all the time. We're not all technically gifted. We're not Iniestas and Xavis in this team. We're a team that don't even want to get into a 50-50 battle. McAllister's pulling out challenges. McAllister's getting pushed slightly and he's falling to ground. He's not chasing anyone. So that's my concern. Like, we have no bite in this team. And this comes from the coach. Like, imagine if Jurgen Klopp was still our manager right now. Are you telling me he wouldn't energize this team and build him a certain way? This is the energy that comes from your leader. He's not a leader. He's not. He's far from it. So that's why I need someone better than Arne Slot to come in and change the way we play. Because right now, yeah, it's like watching a relegation team. That's how it feels like to me. We're not playing any great brand of football. We've got no identity. We're just going through the motion. And when we get a draw, apparently I need to be happy that we got a draw. Why? Yesterday was point drops, not gained, in my opinion. We scored in the 94th minute and then we conceded 2 minutes later. That's not acceptable for me. So yeah, make of that what you will. Whilst it seems that Amorim wants to be the manager though, but Man United might have just felt like they've given managers in the past a chance and they've overused their power or they've overspent ridiculously. That obviously pushes them financially. And they thought, we got to change our model. We got to adapt to the ways, i.e., the modern time. Sporting director, first team coach. So that's what they thought they had to do. Both I don't want a yes man as my coach. I want a coach that questions everything the board does. Make the fans know. That was my opinion on Amorim. As fans, we don't need to know everything. I know that's very silly to say out loud, but we don't. We don't need to know what happens in the background. Sometimes those conversations need to remain private. And when it comes to a first team coach and sporting director or board or however you want to phrase it, that is a working partnership. That is a collective partnership there. No one is working as individuals in that scenario. When we speak about managers, they were regarded as individuals. They were the leader of that club. So they would manage everything. Now, if you're a coach and you're working with a sporting director, there's probably a board that's probably known as the transfer committee or however you want to label it. And they're the ones that are going to help you in terms of doing data metrics to find potential players for the future. They help you with the recruitment. They help you with negotiating the deals and all that sort of stuff. So it's a collective effort now. So your coach will have to be a yes man to an extent. He's not going to be superior. He might have different values in comparison. And I would want him to be firm when it comes to recruitment. If there's a player he thinks is not good enough, he needs to stand firm. But unfortunately, his vote is one of many. So he doesn't have the outstanding vote from what I know. So Arne Slot, there is going to be an element of him being a yes man. But it's just the way football's going now. That's why managers are getting sacked left, right, and center. Because if they don't meet the targets or the requirements, they're dismissed. It's a shame, but that's how football is going towards, unfortunately. I've already read that comment. Amorim will take over West Ham when is Nuno getting sacked? How bad are West Ham doing? Let's have a look at their position. I've been, excuse me, where are they? Of course, I'm not expecting them to be anywhere at the top. Okay, 18th, 4 points away from 17th. The last in the last 5 games they lost 4. So, if that's the case, it could work, I guess, from a tactical point of view. It could work from a tactical, but is West Ham the club that he would want to go to? I don't know. And that's not me being disrespectful there. Bo says when he loses every game in January from now, we know he'll be sacked. Let's see. Because our next run of games, they're not easy. So we've got the likes of Arsenal, because we've got Arsenal this Thursday away, Burnley at home, so it should be a routine win. But we struggle against these low block teams, as Arne Slot has referred to them as. Bournemouth away is not an easy game at all. We've struggled at the Vitality Stadium in years. Newcastle at home, that's not an easy game. I know it's at home, but Newcastle are a strong team and they have been showing good form. And then we face Man City, so we could easily lose all five of these games. That's not me being negative, saying we will, but my team has been so inconsistent. I can't say with chest that we're going to win any of these games. It's just the reality. And I'm not going to predict or want Liverpool to lose 5 games to prove this point that Arsenal will get sacked, because what if we do lose all 5 of these games and he doesn't get sacked? My point remains he's going to be given until the end of the season. So I don't want it to, but that is the way it moves, unfortunately. But also bringing Stevie G. That's the name I've said to you for a while now. So yes, I agree. What result on Thursday will make Slot get sacked, Ozzy? I'm going for 7 and he'll be gone. I don't think he'll be one result that gets him sacked personally, but that's just my opinion. Would you get fired up be hearing would you get fired up be hearing Slot talk, Ozzy? Um I don't get fired up. I will probably roll my eyes when he talks nonsense, and yeah, I find him difficult to listen to now, if I'm being honest with you. Ozan says, Yo, big up Ozan, hope you're well. Bo, would you swap Amrin with Slot? Let me know, Bo. He said he would. Wow. That's a surprise. I would not take Amarim at all. And it's funny because we were linked with him. And look, don't get me wrong, when he was a sporting manager, I thought he had a very different way of playing that I feel like if he was at the right club, it would work. I didn't feel like at the time we were the right fit for him because of the way he plays, 3-4-3 sort of formation. So I didn't think we were the right club. So we don't really traditionally play in that way. And I was very surprised that United got him. I think they just got him based on him being a trendy name in the managerial world. Uh, I said, man, really just that Slot. Yeah, Bo hates him, clearly. I don't want him at all, but over Slot. Yeah, Amram, not for me. I'm sorry. I know we're not happy with Slot, but yeah. I've got United fans telling me they're over the moon that Amram's gone. So make of that what you will. All right, let's move on and speak about Marc Guehi. So I mentioned his name earlier on. So current rumor today is that Man City want to sign Marc Guehi in January. And the reason being is because they have a couple of injuries. They have the likes of Ruben Diaz and Govardio out for the foreseeable future. No final decision from City over formal approach, but interest has accelerated. Liverpool and Bayern Munich are also interested. So my take on this, it is a slight concern. I'm not going to lie, because history will tell you when Man City are down in terms of numbers in their squad and they need to rectify a position, whether it's a January signing or summer signing, they normally pull out the checkbook and they get the job done. And with Marc Guehi being an established player in the Premier League and for the national team, why wouldn't Marc Guehi go over to Man City? Unless he's given his word to Liverpool that he definitely wants to join us and he'll join us in the summer, for example. I don't know. I don't think that would be the case. I think he's probably annoyed with what happened in the summer. I don't think he'll blame Liverpool for it as such, but I think the smart thing would be for him to hold out until end of the season, review his options because he's going to have a lot of offers on the table. and he'll be able to negotiate a deal because of the competition. He'll be able to get a bigger salary. He'll be able to get a bigger sign-on fee as well, and everyone's happy, including his agent. So in that scenario, it makes sense. And also from his current club's point of view, they messed him about. They denied him a move last summer. So why would he want them to gain any financial sort of why would they want him to gain any finances based on what happened in the summer? So if Man City were to sign him, for example, in this month, what the fee could be like 15, 20 million, I would assume. You've just given the club 20 million and they mugged you off. So he's gonna feel a certain type of way, in my opinion. So this is going to be interesting. I don't know if they will get him. I feel like Marc Guehi is going to stay at Palace until the end of the season, and then he will revisit the situation then, and I will see him move on from there onwards. Just got a couple of comments here. Let's see. Let's see. Bo says my list is Klopp, Inzaghi, Stevie G, Iraola, please. No Glass, not all Nagelsmann. Well, Glass has actually been linked with the United job, um, which is interesting to be fair. In regards to the names you present, Klopp is not an option. He's not wanting to return to management. Inzaghi, I'm a little bit unconvinced that he is. I think he's a good coach. I don't know if he's top level, in my opinion. CVG, I would bring him on interim. Iraola, Iraola has huge potential, but in regards to Iraola, I think if he was number one choice, we would have got him by now because he's only got 6 months left. We would have then sacked Slot in November and tried to have got him at that time. I think that would have been the start. So I have a feeling that they have someone else in mind to take over, and it's not Iraola. Um, but for me, the logical appointment would be Stevie G until end of the season, and then take it from there. Boss is just bring Stevie G to steady the ship. Bro, Ozzy, the gay ship has sailed months ago, in my opinion. Oh, I've said that as well. I think it has sailed as well. But our name continues to be linked because of his current situation. And remember, he is able to negotiate with foreign clubs right now. So he can sign a pre-contract agreement with a team outside of England. So let's see. I don't think he's going to make a decision right now. I I think he'll wait in the summer. I think he'll assess his options and take it from there. For Arsenal's house, Ozzy, would you take Jorgen Strand Larsen? Based on this season's form, no, he's been absolutely shocking. He's only scored 1 in 16 games, I believe. Excuse me. I thought he did decent for them last season, but I think that is his level. I don't think he is at a level where he can join the top club. In my opinion, I don't see it. But of course, if he was a backup, then he wouldn't be a bad backup in that regards. Um, but yeah. Ball says, can you see Pep wanting the Liverpool job when he leaves City? Seems like he always has a soft spot with us. I don't see that happening, unfortunately. I would love for that to be the case. Pep would be an amazing appointment, but no, I don't see that happening. Would you take Thiago as coach, Ozan? Okay, so that's a question for Ozan. Ozan is saying yes, but not the gaffer. Okay, let's move on to the next rumor, and that is regards to Joe Adonia. So we spoke about him last week at some point, and we thought a deal was pretty much on the verge of completion, right? Well, the current rumor is that Liverpool are still closing in on a move to sign the defender. A deal worth up to 43 million has been agreed, and the Reds are expected to complete the signing of the 21-year-old in a matter of days. I can't remember who the source was, but if that's the case, I would be happy with the signing. I'm not saying he's a savior or anything like that, but I think he would be a welcome addition. He's a player at the right age, right profile, and I feel like he will definitely bring strength and depth into our squad. So for me, I would be thumbs up with this signing, and I hope it does happen uh, in the coming days, based on what the article was saying. No real update on Wharton, but if we thought it was going to be an easy road to sign the English midfielder, think again, because you have teams like Real Madrid, Chelsea, Man City, and Manchester United rivaling for his signature. So Crystal Palace are closely monitoring an expected bidding war with any interested club willing to exceed 65 million euros, which is about 60 million pounds. So they want something like they obtained with Eze, for example, a big amount of money. So my thoughts on that, I'm not surprised. I feel like he's a player that would definitely interest a lot of the teams. I'm not surprised by the Real Madrid links because if he moved over to Spain, I think he would cook in that league. Uh, for me, he's a maestro, that type of player. He really is. Can do everything on the ball, and from a technical standpoint, they would love him there. So the Real Madrid links don't surprise me, but that's why I want him at Liverpool because I feel like he could be a fantastic addition to our squad. I feel like he can change the way our midfield is set up, and I feel like he would add something that we currently don't have, which is someone that is tall, strong, powerful, great in terms of his defensive awareness, defensive interceptions, but also progressive as a deep playmaker, left-footed, so it gives us a different dimension from that point of view, and has a better all-round game than some of our midfielders in the team. So for me, Water is definitely top of the shortlist. Whether we sign him or not remains to be seen. Now, this is a player that we've been linked to in the past, but we've been linked to him again. Maybe it's lazy journalism, I don't know. But Sport France are now claiming that Liverpool are very keen on Toulouse defender Charlie Cresswell. The former Leeds United player has been monitored by Liverpool and Newcastle, although Man City have also registered an interest in signing the England under 21 international. So, my thoughts on him, I've not seen much of him, to be honest with you. I watched him I watched Toulouse, I should say, once or twice last season because we were linked with him. Seemed all right. I didn't really see anything special or outstanding that I felt like, we needed to go for him. Just seemed like a solid defender. So I wouldn't want us to just go for anyone. I want us to go for someone that has high quality. But if they're young, I want them to be, the next big thing. I want that kind of level. I want special talents, not just any players for the sake of it. So I don't know how well he's progressing with Toulouse this season, and I don't think there's any truth. I think it's just lazy journalism where you've got an English player playing in France, and surprise, surprise, Liverpool need defenders. Let's bring the two together in an article. That's what I feel that's happened there. So this is more for clickbait than nothing else. So I don't see us having any interest in signing Charlie Cresswell. And the final story of today is regarding Mohamed Salah. So, AFCON update, Egypt have advanced to the quarterfinals with a 3-1 extra time win over Benin. So, congrats to the Egyptian king and also his teammates who are progressing very well in the competition, but more so on Mohamed Salah, who's having a huge impact for his nation and is not too far away from possibly winning the tournament and shutting up a few people's mouths as well, which I would be over the moon to see, to be fair. Um, just going to go through some of the comments and we will then close the show. Boss is weird how I miss being angry and sad for many days after the result. Ozzy. Now there's no feelings. It's because you've got numb to it now. We're used to this nonsense, unfortunately. And yeah, that's not how it should be. Boss, it doesn't look like Slot going to sign a new contract, Ozzy. Is that something that's something from the hierarchy. Because I think he's got a year and a half left of his contract. Could be wrong. I'll have to double check that. But he doesn't have a long period left because we didn't sign him on a very long term contract. So it would be stupid if the club did offer him a new contract based on what he's done so far. So I think they were plans of having talks and further negotiation, but that has been held at standstill. Maybe that's something they will have a discussion or have dialogue at the end of the season when they do their reviews in terms of financially and on the pitch as well. And then a decision will be made then. So I'll be very surprised if he's manager next season. You can't completely rule it out, if I'm being honest, but You never know. Football is a funny game, and sometimes the unthinkable happens, unfortunately. As I said, do you think McConnell would add any value to the squad if we get him back from Ajax? So I mentioned this the other day. I think he's either return or he's going to come back very, very soon. And I think he will. Personally, I rate McConnell. I think he's very, very talented. And I feel like he could definitely add quality or depth to our squad. So so yes, in regards to your question, I think he would. Unfortunately, he's got an injury right now. And I don't know the extent. It's a bit unknown right now. So once he returns, we'll get a bit more of an update in terms of his availability. But yes, we don't have too many options in midfield, so I think he would be a welcome addition. But also, we would have Rio, Leone, McConnell, Clark in the squad if Klopp was here. By the way, Klopp loved the cameo, and I loved him. Um, I don't think Clark would have been here personally because Clark was sold under Jurgen Klopp, right? If I'm correct. McConnell, I think Klopp did rate McConnell to be fair, and Leone and Rio. So yeah, uh, that's true, but that's why we need to find the right coach going forward that actually wants to empower his youth players. Maybe that's something that didn't come up in their metrics when they were assessing Arne Slot. They just went for other numbers and didn't see, his success rate with young players. Because I feel like that's important. A club like Liverpool, we're allowed to buy players with potential and then they become top level or world class players. That's been our philosophy for quite a long time, and I think we should stick with it because it's a philosophy that works. It makes sense, and you don't want to always spend 450 million pound every year. Some fans would, but I would like it where young players are given opportunities coming through the ranks. So yeah, in terms of what you've said, I agree. Um, but it's based on the coach's philosophy, and maybe that's not within Arnold Slot's philosophy going forward. Kid can play CDM, CM, and even I rate McConnell, Morton and Kwanzaa as well. Morton barely featured for Klopp, so I wouldn't go far as to mention his name. Kwanzaa did, to be fair, but Kwanzaa wasn't brought in because he was a wonder kid. He was brought in because Joe Matip picked up an injury and actually, was out for the rest of the season and then was released at the end of that season as well. So that wasn't based on having a wonder kid in our squad. That was just a situational thing there, and we brought him in. And to be fair, he took the opportunity and ran with it and did a good job for Jurgen Klopp. He's too young for Slot though. Is that in regards to McConnell? Shouldn't be the case to be fair. Clark was on Slot. Was on Slot. I thought it was on the Klopp. Was that? Oh, that was the summer when Klopp left, isn't it? Yeah, that's fair. Because I think that's when. No, you're right. Because that's when Pep Linders went to Red Bull, Salzburg, and then that's where he joined them there as well. So yeah, you are correct. But would there have been guaranteed that he would have stayed on? I don't know. Um, also weird how Slot thinks real too young, but he was part. I'm not gonna read the rest of that. Bloody hell, bro. Uh, Ozzy, what we say if Weatherty Lucky has a 9 out of 10 against Barnsley, well, I'll be like it's only Barnsley, but that's the honest truth. Um, Look, if we start calling him generational after a performance against Barnsley, then yeah, unfortunately our expectations are low. But look, I'm always gonna rate the kid. If he performs well, he'll get credit. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna get gassed over a player that does well against Barnsley. Just to say it out loud. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to let's see. Shout out to Bowl, of course. Appreciate your comments. Shout out to Daz, shout out to Double D, shout out to Opojari. Appreciate you commenting on the show. Uh Shout out to Ozan. As always, if you haven't already, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, nothing scheduled for tomorrow, but then again, this show wasn't scheduled either. So, best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know if I plan on doing an impromptu live stream like I did today. But in terms of sticking to the schedule, we do have a show scheduled for Wednesday, as we'll be doing the match preview of Arsenal versus Liverpool. And then on Thursday, we'll do the live watch along of that game, plus the match reaction show as well. So I'm sure that will be an interesting discussion between us based on the result. Whether we lose or win, I'm sure there'll be a lot of talking points in regards to that. Also in the comments says that's the response. I knew he was gonna say it's only Barnsley. Yeah, it is though. It is only Barnsley. So I can't get gassed over us or a player having an amazing performance against Barnsley. So yeah. Uh yeah, I can't say that. I'm not gonna say stuff like that. But as always, guys, appreciate your support for today. Thank you for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.